get into some recap specifically related to the pandemic. The last innings of the pandemic, as it were, and the possible 9th inning strikeout that is basically the last major hurdle that we have to keep in mind as the vaccine continues to make the rounds. So, recently, there was a rather controversial move by Governor Ned Lamont. Bring up Microsoft Edge. There was a rather controversial move by Governor Ned Lamont, who decided to simplify the vaccine rollout in Connecticut. Connecticut's doing really well with the vaccine rollout, but, ooh, that's off. Connecticut is doing really well with the vaccine rollout compared to a lot of other states in the country. But there's one very critical thing. There is one, oh, that's why I was blocking that out. There was one very critical thing, I'm kind of doing a reaction type thing here. There was one very critical issue that happened because of what the governor has been doing here. There's one very critical thing that has taken place. The original plan for the vaccine rollout in Connecticut had a phase specifically for essential workers. So the phase for essential workers was supposed to be after the really critical, like healthcare and stuff like that. That is no more. Now everything is being done exclusively based on age. And all I have to say to that is the Democratic Party in the state of Connecticut should primary Governor Lamont for this. Let me tell you something about the so-called essential workers. So here's what's next. Let's put it on screen here. So first you have anybody working in healthcare and first responders. You have people that are involved in long-term care facilities and people 65 and older. All of this makes sense. But to knock essential workers off of any kind of priority list, especially when you have education and childcare providers starting March 1st, which is in a couple of days, is the biggest slap in the face that anybody who's been trying to be constructive in this pandemic could ever receive. This is nuts. Let me tell you something, and it may be something perhaps the governor needs to hear, maybe even for the first time. Let me tell you this. The healthcare folks getting the thing first made all the sense in the world. They're putting themselves at risk. They're working with people that are sick. But just because you are an essential worker who doesn't work in healthcare does not mean that the risk goes completely away. Yes, you may work in a hospital or a medical clinic. I have some friends who work in healthcare. It's one of the big reasons why I've been pro-science throughout all of this and taking this pandemic very, very seriously. Because I've seen the discussions on social media from very nervous healthcare employees who are worried about getting sick every single day they go to work for months, only to have some idiot in some internet group somewhere say that the pandemic isn't as serious as it really is. And that misinformation has gotten more people sick. 500,000 dead in the United States. And there are still people out there that don't want to take this thing seriously. How is that possible? Does not compute. No. So, I have all the sympathy in the world for these healthcare workers who know that their jobs have been hell, not just in terms of worrying about whether they're going to get this thing, but their jobs being hell because they're working all these extra shifts because of all these people getting sick, some of whom have gotten sick because of this nonsense out there. Unacceptable. 100% unacceptable. This is the United States of America. We should be far better than this. So, yeah, all those healthcare folks that have been stressing out for months, even before they got vaccinated. And now they're stressing out with working double shifts and things like that, 14, 15-hour shifts, because this has been that big of a thing. And then they turn around on the internet and the little time they do have, and they see someone being like, you're paranoid, you're living in fear, you're blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Your time to be taken seriously is long over. Now, so I have friends who work in healthcare who have been stressed for months about all of this. Getting them vaccinated first was the least we can do. They put up with a lot of crap. They've been putting up with a lot of crap. It makes all the sense in the world. But just because they're going through all of that doesn't mean that the person working the counter at your local restaurant or your local fast food place or your Cumberland Farms or whatnot isn't in a risky situation. Let's talk about these essential workers, essential superheroes, and all the crap that people have been saying about people still trying to work throughout all of this, often getting snubbed because it's a situation, they're going in, they're putting themselves at risk, but they're not healthcare workers, so they're not a priority for the vaccine, thanks Governor Lamont. They go in, they put themselves at risk. Sometimes they even earn less money than people sitting home on unemployment because of all the unemployment subsidies to keep people sheltering in place. Essential workers have gone through all of this crap, but now they're no longer a priority in the state of Connecticut. I got news for you. The risk doesn't go away just because you're not working in healthcare. If you're working, for example, I've talked to some people at local convenience stores like Cumberland Farms and Chucky's and Extra Mart. I've talked with some folks. They've got the plexiglass thing, yes, but half the darn people coming into the convenience store aren't wearing masks as, well, this isn't as serious as people are making it say. They're in that camp. Whatever. Half the people aren't even wearing their damn masks correctly, but they can't do anything about it. I'm like, why aren't you calling these people out? Why aren't you refusing service? We can't. We can put a sign on the door, but we can't actually do anything to enforce it. Company won't let us do anything. So these people have been working, doing something constructive with themselves, putting themselves at risk for months now. Maybe even over a year. This thing's been around since the beginning of 2020, so maybe we're getting into years now. And Governor Ned Lamont wants to eliminates the phase in the vaccine rollout plan for essential workers. What the hell was he thinking? Governor Lamont should be primaried for that. Connecticut Democratic Party, get on it. Holy crap. Let me tell you something. The governor maybe, I want to keep it simple. No, here's how you keep it simple in the nutmeg state. Here's how you keep it simple. You reward people who've been putting themselves at risk, going to work during all of this, sometimes making less money than the people sitting at home. You stop punishing people for still having a job, and you let them get the freaking vaccine. They may be working a public-facing role in a grocery store, in a grocery store, in a convenience store, in a restaurant, the ones that are still operating. Oh, even if they're operating under the limited dining and whatnot, these people could be dealing with knuckleheads coming in that won't wear their mask correctly. And by the way, it doesn't matter at all. Even if you could force these people to wear their masks properly by refusing service, even if you could do something about that, you could only get them to behave differently in your store, in your restaurant, in your business. You can't do a thing about what they're doing when they're not on the property. That's the wild card with people that don't want to wear masks properly in employment settings, too. You get the one guy that doesn't, masks, whatever. Well, you can use discipline and rules and stuff to get them to wear it correctly when they're on the job. Can't do anything about it when they're not. So they put themselves at risk every other time, and they still represent a risk to the business and a potential source of some very serious costs if you do the right thing. As I found out when folks with the 9-to-5ers, now we have to clean the place out, and the COVID cleaners are very, very expensive. So we want to minimize, obviously the right thing to do is minimize that as much as possible. So make sure that if you're going to be blowing all that money on COVID cleanups from and whatnot, make absolutely certain that if you're going to be spending all that money, it's all because, oh, we couldn't cover all the bases. Something happened. We couldn't control it. But if you have someone in there with a bad attitude, they should not be there. If you got somebody in there that doesn't want to get with the program, get rid of them. The economy has contracted more with the pandemic than it has with the Great Recession. I was looking over the numbers the other day. I was shocked. No employer should be putting up with people that won't get with the program to keep their coworkers safe, what they work with safe in the case of things like food preparation and stuff, and most importantly, the business's bottom line safe. Yeah, let's get all Scroogey and let's talk about how it's all about money. If it's super expensive to clean a place up and you're eating all these costs every time you have to clean and sanitize the facility, that's coming out of somewhere else. It's the way business works. Question is where? What are we giving up because of this stuff? So, I mean, this is something that should have been taken seriously from the beginning, from a personal standpoint and from an organizational standpoint. There you go. So, for the governor to remove the phase for essential workers is the single biggest insult that anybody who's been putting up with all this propaganda trying to stay productive. It's the single biggest insult yet in this whole fiasco. Oh, you're an essential superhero, but we're not going to give you hazard pay. Yeah, we're not going to give you hazard pay, but you know what? 3 months into this mess, if you're still employed here, we'll have a pizza party or something. Yeah. Oh, we're having such a hard time getting people to work for us. Why? Nobody wants to work. Yeah. Story of the year, ladies and gentlemen. And here in the Nutmeg State, we're putting the nut in Nutmeg State by, oh yeah, we're just going to simplify it to everything based on age. Except for people that work in education, the last special treatment group that we'll have. Not the people who are doing literally everything else to keep the economy going. Not the businesses that lose people, talent, and skill every time they have to force someone home on quarantine, and Uncle Nutmeg no longer considers what is necessary for the economy to keep going to be a priority for vaccination. Wow. So that's why I want to come on here and rant about this. I'm very, very, very insulted by the governor's decision to remove the Phase 1B for essential workers. I don't think he's who I want in office anymore. If he gets primaried, I vote for the other guy. I don't care. If he gets primaried, I vote for his competitor. Connecticut, by the way, for those of you upset about this, is a closed primary state. So if you're not a registered Democrat in the state of Connecticut, if there's any chance you may want to vote in case this guy does get primaried because you're upset about this whole essential workers thing, then definitely keep that in mind. Know what the deadlines are for changing your affiliation to vote in that primary, because quite frankly, this guy needs to do a very serious about face, because there are very real consequences to, I want to keep it simple. And here, let's take a look at some of this. So one of the big priorities that people are talking about with what's next here in Connecticut is reopening the schools. Get the kids back in school. Here's the problem, though. So educators and childcare providers can schedule an appointment on March 1st. But a lot of the major vaccines, the two major vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, have 2 doses to them. You're not where you need to be in terms of immunity until about a week after your 2nd dose. So I found out today, and the reason why we're having this rant, one of them anyways, I found out today I got to be careful because the noise blocker can make it sound like I'm having trouble breathing, which is not the case. I found out today there are some hotshot education bureaucrats in certain school districts in Connecticut that want to reopen this, that want to get the bragging rights of being the first to reopen the schools. and some of the most extreme examples, they want to get the schools fully in-house again and no distance learning before the teachers are even vaccinated. Holy crap. Yeah, we can do this in March. You know, the Rooney character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off was supposed to be a satire of the out-of-touch school principal or administrator who's living in an ivory tower somewhere. That was supposed to be satire. Why are there bureaucrats out there that actually want to make that real? It's the old joke about be careful what you joke about. Some idiot out there might actually do it. Why can't we joke about stuff anymore? Why can't we have a sense of humor? How come we can't watch what is essentially a classic 80s movie without having to worry about this crap? It's nuts. It's far beyond nuts. Why can't we do that? CDC.gov, by the way, we've got that. Oh, we got the FAQ open here. So here's the problem. If you actually read the CDC information like this, CDC.gov, get educated, ladies and gentlemen. If you actually read the CDC's information about some of these things, there is a wild card that is still in play. We have the vaccine. Awesome. Can't wait to get it. Can't wait to get it. Let's get that sucker into the wild as quickly as we can. You know, move society forward from what we've dealt with over the past year that made 2020 such a rubbish start to the decade. Get this done. Get it done. Move forward. One foot in front of the other. Get out of this thing. Except, the thing that science still needs to figure out is whether or not we have one last hurdle regarding asymptomatic transmission. We don't know yet whether getting a COVID-19 vaccine will prevent you from spreading the virus that causes COVID-19 to other people, even if you don't get sick yourself. CDC will continue to update this page as we learn more. CDC.gov, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a perfectly valid concern because there have been some experiments and vaccine trials that have tried to look for statistical significance in the numbers and everything to see if we're not creating potentially more problems for ourselves, because this is something that the medical community talks about a lot in their own little circles. It's just going into the general public's point of view because how bad this thing has been. But if you talk about, for example, vaccination in general, there's always the issues with what about those people that for medical reasons can't receive a vaccine? What do we do about them? This is why we're talking about things like herd immunity and stuff like that. Hand sanitizer just for the heck of it. Still trying to use up all this suave stuff. But so you always got to wonder about that. And that's going to be the last frontier with all of this as society moves forward from all of this, is what to do about maybe the people that can't be vaccinated or something. And that's where we got to figure out what the heck we're going to do and see, get the numbers in, get the data in, and do some very serious studies to make sure that we don't have a situation where everybody who's vaccinated could be an asymptomatic carrier, because asymptomatic carriers have been the nightmare situation throughout the pandemic. Let me just give you some reasons why, essentially going back to the essential workers thing. With the 9-to-5ers, this is something that I've had that has kept me in line big time when it comes to making sure I stay 6 feet away and all that other stuff. So, our COVID prevention strategy is highly dependent upon someone showing symptoms. So, the sitting duck situation is if you don't have symptoms. It's been that way the whole way through. So, short of people getting swabbed every single day, whether they have symptoms or not, or whatever, short of a test that can determine on the spot if someone's asymptomatic, we're sitting ducks. We could have somebody asymptomatic in the building, and it's the people that they're infecting that keep getting sent home on quarantine. That's the concern. It's been the concern. Medical community even backs that up as well. That's the major, major wild card to all of this stuff. So now, with vaccine in the wild, there's more and more people that could be that way. We just got to make sure that we can figure out what to do about all this or get everybody vaccinated. So I can't wait for the darn vaccine. I'll take time off work if the side effects are harsh, if it means getting past that critical stage and getting past this garbage. I am pro-science. I want this thing as soon as I'm eligible, which is one of the reasons why I'm so upset about essential workers being essentially punished, not trying to make a joke with the word essential there, by this whole redoing of everything in the state of Connecticut. That's precisely the reason why. I mean, it's just, look, you don't want to punish people for working. And there's certainly been enough stuff that has happened throughout all of this that has done exactly that. Whether you made less money than someone home on stimulus unemployment or things along those lines, or you're putting yourself at risk more often, or like in various medical events of centuries gone by, the rich people can stay in their castles while the poor people put themselves at risk, that kind of thing. You have all that stuff going on. So, for Pete's sake, let them, if we had the old system, well, if we simplified the old system to where essential workers could get this thing before the rest of folks in the, and whatnot, it would incentivize getting a job and going to work. Isn't that the sort of thing that some people, even politicians, have talked about, trying to find a balance between slowing this thing down and incentivizing people to work? Well, what if we had it to where, just in general, any essential worker could be part of the next phase after the critical, like, folks in, like, healthcare and stuff like that, and it wasn't done exclusively by age? Imagine if that was the case. People would want jobs if they wanted a vaccine. So we'd be talking about how long do you have to be working at a place before you can get vaccinated? Or can we make it a condition for employment? So you get a job, and even if you quit the job after 3 days, you still get vaccinated. So that helps with getting the doses out there and stuff. So there's so many different things that Governor Lamont in the state of Connecticut could have done to incentivize working and getting back to normal and economic activity. And a phase for essential workers could have been a big part of that. It's just, there was talk about the states are making it too other states are making it too complicated. People don't know who's essential, who's not. I just say, if you're working, so if you're going to work and you're not working from home, if you're going to work, if you're encountering more people than you otherwise would, you should be a priority. Makes all the sense in the world, right? So, yeah. Doing everything exclusively based on age while you leave the favoritism in place for school folks who can reopen the schools. Now, that's a punch in the face to everybody outside those favored careers of healthcare and education and stuff like that, which makes all the sense in the world that healthcare workers got it first. They've been very stressed, putting in lots of extra hours and putting themselves very, 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 very much at risk for months before this became available. But once you change to a different career, the risk doesn't go away. If you're working the counter in a restaurant and half the darn people won't wear their mask, or if you're at a convenience store and half the darn people won't wear their mask, or whatever, you're not totally not at risk either. And at the same time, the state is actually, and I think that might be some federal stuff going around, changing up the unemployment system so you can collect unemployment if you leave a job that you don't believe is doing enough to protect employees from COVID. So, yeah, there's stuff going on that's moving in the other direction. So, bottom line, essential workers should not have gotten this slap in the face from the state of Connecticut. What was Governor Lamont thinking? I don't know. I don't care. He needs to apologize for this whole thing. And now here's the last part, which we alluded to earlier before we went off on the tangent again. There are some uppity-up education bureaucrats out there who want to be the first superintendents and other administrators to reopen their schools. In some cases, before the teachers are even vaccinated properly. The two major vaccines have 2 doses, and it takes a while after the second dose for you to be where you are. And the doses are about a month apart, 3 to 4 weeks. So, to be talking about reopening schools when your teachers could maybe only have 1 dose? Unacceptable. No amount of bragging rights that you as a superintendent of schools or whatever, dean of students or what education bigwig, whatever, no amount of bragging rights is worth putting your community at risk just to get the schools open earlier. None. Here's the wild card, and this is the problem if we have a problem with asymptomatic transmission while we're getting everybody vaccinated. Because the minute we started putting shots in arms, we started racing against the clock to not have this problem. The last major problem we can have as we get out of this crap. Here's the situation. First off, where's the uproar from the teachers' unions on this? I'd love to see if there is anything there where they're threatening a strike or something if some uppity-up administrator tries to get them back in before they're properly vaccinated. I've seen some articles about it in various districts around the country, but here in Connecticut, a little lax on news articles with that kind of stuff. Haven't seen too many of them. So where are the upset teachers' unions? Where's all that stuff? Probably something somewhere if I went digging for it. Here's the thing, though. Yeah, you're putting the teachers at risk, bringing all the kids back in. Putting the teachers at risk if they're not fully vaccinated yet, so that should cause an uproar from the teachers' union. And at the very same time, you have a situation where, let's suppose that doesn't happen. Suppose the teachers have enough immunity from this thing to not get it. We're running the risk of asymptomatic transmission from, there's a risk that somewhere out there you're going to go from school worker to kid to parent. Who are the parents going to be? What age groups are they in? Not the groups that, if you're opening the schools too early, will have received their shots yet. Microsoft Edge. Let's go back to that thing. Let's go back to the state of Connecticut page. So, March 1st, you have education and childcare providers that are next, and then everybody 55 plus. If you have kids that are school age, what age groups are you in? Maybe if you're a really old parent, 55 plus with a high school kid or something, or you're in a relationship with a huge age difference, you can get vaccinated while your kid goes back to school. Otherwise, we're talking 40s, 30s, and 20s. Now, we know from some of the nightmare situations that have gone on out there that this thing isn't totally a problem with the elderly. There can be wildcard situations involving people in younger age groups. So, these uppity-up school administrators who want to, let's get everything going again. Let's get everyone back in the building. Let's do before everyone's properly vaccinated. Even if the teachers get vaccinated, you still have a situation where you got to ask, where are we in the schedule with the parents? Are we putting parents at risk indirectly through their kids going back to school just so some bureaucrat can brag on their resume that they opened the schools first compared to other towns in the area? That we can't have that. Sorry. This is why I've been a supporter of the state making the calls rather than the municipalities. It only takes one municipality to drop the ball to put a lot of people at risk this late in the game. We don't need this. We do not need this. Here's the thing, though. I was looking at, and I could check it again, other age groups. Right now, it's 55 and older on March 1st. Last I checked, 40s and 30s and whatnot, you're talking April into May when there'll be enough doses available and stuff like that. But if you close the schools until then, you're talking like barely a school year. But still, is it really worth putting all these people in the community, aka contributors to the economy, at risk, which determines the budgets for towns, the state, and at the federal level? Is it really worth putting all of these people at risk? Not to mention the personal impact if you lose loved ones or have them in the hospital or something. Is it really worth putting all these people at risk just to brag about you had less than half of a school year? Okay, so you reopen your schools in early March. March, April, May, June. 4 months. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 10 months. Is it really worth it? Maybe you would roll the dice at a casino or something. Don't roll the dice on the health of your community. Period. So, double insults here. The folks who've been putting in the work and putting themselves at risk have been snubbed by Hartford because essential workers no longer have a phase in the rollout plan. And uppity-up school districts, like, we're going to reopen first, are putting people at risk. What I don't want to see is a ninth inning strikeout, so to speak. Because somebody dropped the ball at the end of the race. Somebody wouldn't stay the course. The American people and society as we know it has gone through a lot with this crap. They don't need to go through anything more just because of some bureaucrat's ego somewhere. I hope this situation gets better. When we come back, this is it for the recap. When we come back, we're going to take a look at YouTube. Moving forward into 2021. Changes I'm making in anticipation of this, as well as what's going on as the world moves forward from all this mess. YouTube's been piquing my curiosity lately, and I'm very seriously thinking that they're going to try and find a way to move beyond ad revenue as any significant focus whatsoever. Stay tuned.
Maybe I'm a